What's up everyone, how's it going? So today we're talking about 12 exercises that I never prescribe for clients. So I never write these in training plans, and this is mostly because the risk versus reward is absolutely not worth it. Now, I do some of these exercises, some of my clients do some of these exercises, but only if they already know how to do them, if they've already been doing them, and if they particularly like these movements. But if I don't have that information one way or the other, I will never, ever use these exercises. Simply because, again, the risk versus reward is not worth it, and there are often better choices that can get you better results. The number one goal with any client is not to get them to their goals. Their number one goal, for me, is to not get them injured. Okay? So that is always going to be the first thing. Safety comes first, and improvement comes second. Simply because if you're injured, you can't really improve, or it becomes very, very difficult. Now the first one is going to be the Skullcrusher. Now this is something that I do occasionally. I'm doing it in this video right here, but I don't prescribe them to most clients simply because they are often stressful to the elbow joint. The way I'm doing them is I'm breaking with the elbow back. That sounds bad, but you can see the elbow joint is not fixed. I'm also getting a little bit of lat involvement, and I find that this actually is a more natural movement. I can use a little bit more weight, but even more than that, it seems to put a little bit less stress on the elbow. So if you're going to do Skullcrushers, do them in this way, but even then, I don't really write them in most programs. If someone says, I love Skullcrushers, and they don't get any issues, maybe they have very durable elbows for some reason, then it's fine. But if I don't have that information, I cannot write that in someone's program because it might cause elbow issues. The elbow is a very claustrophobic joint, and it's easy to get tendinitis. So for most people, it's not really worth it. There are better alternatives. You could do something like an overhead dumbbell tricep extension. Now this can also cause strain in some people, but it's a lot less likely than a Skullcrusher. You can also do dips, you can also do close grip bench press, you can do push downs. There are so many ways to stimulate the triceps that don't cause elbow issues in a significant proportion of the people who do them. Now, this doesn't mean that the Skullcrusher is a bad movement for everyone, but it's bad enough for enough people that I cannot prescribe it as a coach in good conscience. Number 2 is going to be the behind the neck press. So I do these sometimes. I use a wider grip. It's called a cloak-off press, and this is really going to be really good for the front delt as well as the side delt, and you'll get a little bit of tricep stimulation as well. Now, this can be tough on the shoulder joint for a lot of people, especially if you spend a lot of time at the computer, you're very hunched forward, internally rotated. You might not be able to get in the correct positions to actually do this exercise effectively. Furthermore, the shoulder joint actually has quite a bit of variability. So some people, they have a shoulder joint that is actually hooked over, and these types of people definitely can't get in the correct position to safely overhead press, especially behind the neck. So for me, I can't really prescribe this. Some people love them, but also a lot of people hate them, and they hate them because they get messed up from this type of movement. Again, risk versus reward for a lot of people, not really worth it. There are so many ways to develop your shoulders. I did a whole video on it. I'll link it in the description. You can do lateral raises, you can do presses in front, you can use dumbbells. There are just so many ways to stimulate the entire shoulder, and I don't think for most people it's going to be worth it. Number 3 is going to be my favorite lift of all time, the deficit deadlift. Now, you might be thinking, well, Geoff, if this is your favorite lift of all time, shouldn't you be writing it in everyone's programs because it's so good? No, okay? Just because I like something doesn't mean everyone is going to like it. Just because I like doing intervals doesn't mean everyone should do intervals. Everyone's program needs to be individual, and this is a lift that can be risky for some people. I've done this lift for a long time. I have very strong spinal erectors. I have long arms, so for me to get in the correct position to pull safely and effectively and have this movement benefit me is going to be not that difficult. But for other people, let's say you have average length arms, or you have, below average length arms, maybe you don't have that strong of a back, well, this lift could be trouble for you. And so again, risk versus reward. I can't really program it for most people because, simply put, it's possible that it could get them injured. And this brings me to an important point. Someone today on Quora, they said to me, "Oh, why are you standing on plates to deadlift in this picture on your Quora post? You know, you should put a disclaimer because this is bad form or something." Alright, it's a deficit deadlift. That doesn't mean it's bad form. And I'm not going to put a disclaimer on every post, okay? This is just something that I think the modern world is completely off base. Don't copy people blindly. Assess if the movement is correct for you, and then do it if you want to do it. But don't just do something because you see someone else do it. That's where you run into trouble. Self-assess, see if it's right for you, and then do it if it's right for you. If it's not, then don't do it. It's just that simple. Number 4 is going to be the wide grip bench press. Now, I usually bench press with a moderate grip or a close grip. I think taking an extremely wide grip is usually not going to be effective for most people's goals. If your goal is to bench press the most possible weight, yes, take a huge arch, take a hugely wide grip, and use that 3-inch range of motion to move maximal weight. But keep in mind that 3 inches isn't going to satisfy anyone, okay? It's not going to satisfy the crowd. It's not going to satisfy your pectoral development. So if that's what you're interested in actually getting functionally stronger, not just powerlifting stronger, don't do it. Also, it can be tough on the shoulders, the lower back, the spine, the hips, the everything, your soul, your conscience, your pride. Just don't do it unless you're actually a powerlifter. Number 5 is going to be Olympic weightlifting. So if someone isn't interested in Olympic weightlifting, I don't just like slide a clean and jerk into their program, simply because, you know, it's one of the most complicated lifts that you can do. And it doesn't really provide a benefit in terms of hypertrophy. Maybe a little bit, but again, risk versus reward. This is a lift that is going to take years to master. I mean, it could take a year or 5 years or even more to truly master a clean and jerk and or a snatch. And do you really want to do that? Most people don't. If you want the benefits of explosive training, do jump squats, do box squats, load up with dumbbells and do jump squats that way. You can do a high pull, a clean pull. There are tons of ways that don't involve the exact Olympic lifts that are going to be very difficult to learn and have a somewhat high risk of injury. If someone specifically wants to do Olympic weightlifting, fine, sure, I'll write that in. But if they don't, it's just not worth it. They're not bad movements, they're just not worth it for most people's goals. Alright, number 6 is going to be the low bar back squat. Now, I can already tell this is going to be by far the most controversial, but maybe it shouldn't be. Let's just assess why you should high bar over low bar. High bar is going to be a more natural bar placement. If you tell a newbie, a beginner, that's a better way to put it, to start squatting, they're going to put the bar in a high bar squat position, 95% of the time or more. Low bar is a very unnatural place to put the bar. It's not very stable for most people. I've seen the bar fall off a bunch of times in powerlifting meets. It's an awkward position for the shoulders, for the elbows, for the wrists. It's essentially a technique hack to lift the most weight possible. Furthermore, when you low bar back squat, you're going to be more bent over, you're going to be more inclined, which is naturally going to put a lot more stress on the sacrum, on the lower back, and on the hips, because you're reaching that really end range of hip range of motion. And this can put stress on the hips, you can get bursitis, you can get all kinds of issues with breaking down of the hip socket itself. You can get butt wink because you are running out of hip range of motion, and so your lumbar will actually tuck under. Some people can get away with this, many cannot. Furthermore, it's actually an inferior exercise when it comes to quad development. So that's a big part of the reason why a lot of people squat. In fact, most powerlifters, they do high bar in the off season, simply because it beats them up less and it works on their weakness, which is going to be the quads. High bar will build low bar will not build high bar. So if you want to get a stronger low bar squat, high bar actually makes sense. So if someone is actually a powerlifter, and I've trained a few of them, yeah, they can do low bar, and it actually makes sense because they need to practice that skill. But if someone is just squatting to be healthy, to be strong, to get bigger legs, stronger legs, high bar all the way, and I'll stand on that hill forever. But, feel free to argue because it helps the algorithm. Number 7 is going to be the upright row. Now, some people love this exercise, but it causes shoulder issues in enough people. Actually, it's really high. I would say at least half of the people are going to have issues like right away. They'll do the upright row, and they'll just be like, oh, nope, nope. And, you know, you can adjust your grip, you can adjust your shoulder position, elbow position to maybe feel better. But honestly, again, there are better movements. Just do lateral raises, just do shrugs, I mean, there's tons of ways to work the traps, the biceps, the rear delts, the shoulders, lateral delts, and, you know, it's just not worth it. If I prescribe this, there's probably about a 50% chance that they're going to get achy shoulders from this. Why would I do that to someone? It's just not worth it. Number 8 is going to be the dumbbell fly. Now, you'll notice a trend. A lot of these are going to be affecting the shoulder joint, and that is because the shoulder is quite fragile. It gets injured pretty easily. It has a huge range of motion, a lot of mobility, but coupled with that is a lack of stability, and this can cause injury for a lot of people. Plus, again, the anatomy varies, so some people are going to be fine, some people are going to get injured really, really easily. For the chest, I think the dumbbell fly is an amazing exercise, but again, high reward, but also high risk. You've seen videos maybe of Arnold doing flies with a massive range of motion. Well, guess what? He's a genetic freak, and he was super durable. You might not be that durable. So switch them out for cable flies, just bench press. You can switch them out for dips, lots of different movements to work the chesticles. Number 9 is going to be the behind the neck pull down. So these are, again, quite stressful to the shoulders for some people. I would say they're better than behind the neck presses, simply because pulling is generally easier on the body than pressing. But still, you can develop issues. I have one client who he's had rotator cuff issues from like 20 years ago. And, you know, he was doing behind the neck pull downs. I spit you not, with 140 kilos, according to him. And it was like partner assisted. And then I guess the partner let go. Maybe he saw a hot chick or something. In the 80s, I guess, like, spandex was popular. Who knows what happened? Crazy times. And the partner let go. He was spotting him. And I guess the weight shot up, and it just, you know, ripped his rotator cuff. And I think for a lot of people, this is not going to be a good exercise. I personally like them. I can get a really good contraction of the mid traps, the lower traps. But could I, in good conscience, you know, give this to a client? Not really. Just do them in front. Traditional pull downs, pull-ups, rows, lots of ways to hit the lats, the mid traps, the lower traps that don't involve a risky position. Number 10 is going to be running. Now, this one is a little bit controversial as well. I am a runner. I was originally a runner. Lifting weights is like my second love. I was a runner for about a decade before I really lifted weights seriously. And I don't really run when I'm in the gym, but, you know, occasionally I do strides like here. If someone is not a runner, I'm not going to tell them to run. If someone is very, very large, they're very obese, I'm not going to have them run. A lot of times they ask me that. They say like, oh, can I not run? Like, is that okay if I just don't have to run? What kind of coach did they have before who was like, all right, today, first day of training, you're going to run a half marathon. I know you're 130 kilos, but, you know, in it to win it, have fun. The risk of injury is very high with running unless you are very light, you are built for running, you have good technique, and you use a lot of recovery methods. If you're bigger, if you have poor technique, if your shoes aren't good, a lot of factors, you're going to get messed up, for sure. Number 11 is going to be the Rubish Row. So I did these a few days ago. It's like an explosive row where you are rowing with the back, obviously, but you're also using a lot of hamstrings, a lot of glutes, a lot of hips, just to get the bar moving. And you can use a ton of weight with these. I've used up to 160 kilos, which is like 80% of my deadlift. So you can really move a ton of weight. However, it does come with a higher risk of injury, simply because you're moving more weight, you're moving explosively, and it's easier for your technique to break down. So for most people, again, not worth it. You're better to keep your rows strict. Number 12 is going to be the good morning. Now, good mornings I think are really good. They're a great technique tool to teach posture and bracing, but they also can be hard on the lower back compared to something like a Romanian deadlift, that has most of the benefits of good mornings. This is actually how Bruce Lee messed up his back, and it was messed up from good mornings until the end of his life. So not really worth it. If someone is a very serious powerlifter, I might have them do good mornings, but pretty light and fairly strict, not, going to 70% of your squat or anything crazy like that. Alright, that is all for today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, drop a comment if you agree or disagree on any of these. Let's see if some of these actually develop some nice juicy arguments. And have a good day, stay safe wherever you are, and I will see you next time. Peace!